How good is your process? I'd say it's pretty damn good. It's good for exactly where you are right now because the process that you're following has you where you are right now. And so it's working perfectly. Now, if you want to go somewhere else, you're going to have to get a new process. You're going to have to redefine that process. You're going to establish new accountability tasks that you need to do in order to get from where you are now, point A, to where you want to go, point B. The only way you're going to do that is refining that process. Now, maybe if you're smart, you have a written out process. And maybe you're not where you want to be because you're not following your process. If that's the case, then maybe your process isn't so bad. Maybe it's just your dedication and your commitment to following that process. And that can be fine tuned through accountability. You need an accountability partner and you need to hold yourself accountable to make sure you're doing the things that need to be done. If you hit 80%, 85% of the things that you have written down on your process, if you're hitting 85%, you're going to be way ahead of the curve. Um, if you're an elite boxer, you want to fight at the Olympics, at the Olympic level, or the national level, then you're going to have a process for road work. You're going to have a process for interval training. You're going to have a process for sprinting. You're going to have a process for sparring. You're going to have a process for hard sparring and skilled sparring. You're going to have a process for mitt work. You're going to have a process for training. You're going to have a process for putting in work on the heavy bag. Um, you're going to have a process for defensive work. You're going to have a process for film study. I'm not talking just film study of your opponents. That's great if you get film on your opponents. That's great, but you're going to have certain athletes out there that you aspire to be like, certain boxers out there that you aspire to be like, and maybe they're current, maybe they're not. It doesn't have to be current. Like you can follow Muhammad Ali and aspire to be like that. And as long as you have those guys and you're watching that consistently, you will begin to emulate them. You will begin to train like them. You will force yourself to imagine yourself being like that fighter, and you have to have a process for that. I mean, it's at the end of the day, that's not as structured, but it's got to be part of your process. Because if you never loosen up, you're just going to be a tight fighter, and all you're going to do is just throw punches and block punches and counter punch, and that's it. But if you can think outside the box and learn from the best, then you can be like the best. And you have to have a process for that. So our process should be defined, should be written out. And to be honest, it's not just training. It's it's rest. It's making sure that you're turning your screens off at night by 9 p.m. That you're taking supplements that are going to increase your testosterone overnight. That you're taking protein when you need it, especially when you're cutting weight. Especially when you're cutting weight, you have to make sure that you're getting higher protein in. You need to get a gram of protein per body pound. This kind of stuff. You have to do your morning supplements. This should all be part of your process. And if you're an elite athlete or you aspire to be an elite athlete, then you got to get on page with that. Things like checking your body fat, knowing how much. Okay, if I lost 20 pounds, how much of that 20 pounds was muscle? Because if I lost 10 pounds of muscle and 10 pounds of fat, it's not very good. If I lost 10 pounds of muscle, that doesn't benefit me very much. Um, I'd rather lose 15 pounds of fat maybe 5 pounds of muscle. That can make sense. That's doable. So if you don't have a process for doing these things, you don't have a nutritionist or somebody that's knowledgeable. Most elite bodybuilders are pretty knowledgeable about that kind of stuff. If you can teach yourself or get a friend that can teach you this stuff, create a process for it. So create your process, and that will get you from point A where you are to point B where you want to be. If you're not challenging yourself in sparring to spar with professionals or elite professionals, because not all pros are on the same curve, but to spar with like world champion style professionals or elite boxers, if you're not challenging yourself on that and you never spar with those guys or you never fight those guys because you're afraid you might lose, that's your process for where you're at. That's why you're not getting better. You're going to have to challenge yourself. You're going to have to line those fights up. You're going to have to be willing to travel out of state and out of your region. You have to travel to states like California, Arizona, Texas, probably Michigan, Ohio. Man, you go over there, there's some good fighters over there. You're gonna be ready, you're gonna be more prepared for elite level fighters if you fight with them. Or if you line up fights, if you're in Washington, Montana, Idaho, and you're able to get a match in Canada against a national champion, a Canadian national champion, that's a great opportunity. So you have to create those opportunities. You have to create those processes in order, if you want to be the best of the best, you're going to have to create a process that's going to get you up, up, up onto that level. And the only way that happens is give yourself more exposure. But you have to have a process for every freaking thing. So I can help you create a process. I have framework. So if you need help creating that process, reach out to me, Mike Kirkman, SR at gmail.com.